Welcome. I'm your host, Stefano, and this is When Leaders Talk, a podcast about leadership, but most importantly, about leaders. And when we talk about leaders, always have to consider one absolutely true fact. That is, no leaders can be an effective one if he or she do not lead themselves first. And that's when the concept of personal leadership comes in. And to be good in leading ourselves, to be good at taking charge of your life, you need some qualities, you need some skills, you need endurance, you need to be fearless. And this is something we talk about with Rishikesh Tirumala, or Rishi as it's easier to call him. Rishi is a special person. He's a great human being. I had the opportunity to work with him a little bit in a few weeks ago, and that's how we met, and there was soon a connection. Rishi is very open about the story and about the transformation he's going through. You will hear in this interview the struggle he's going through, and actually the struggles he had to go through before reaching the position where he is now. Rishi was recently laid off by one of those tech companies, and since then he has been able to reinvent his life. It was not easy for him. I mean, he had to go through some difficulties. He had to go through depression, but he was able to look at the despair and take strength from it to be where he is now. And then he's now in a cocoon. He's looking at transformation, and he's ready to use his skills as an artist, his skills as an artist in improvisation, especially, to dance in the moment, adapt to the situation, and start something new that actually is evolving continuously. You know, when I asked him about his vision, and Rich told me that basically this is something that changes every month. That's what he said, and that's a lot of bravery in those words. Rishi also talked about his biggest failure in life and how he struggled with some problems with alcohol, more than once actually. And he will tell us what he's doing to stay on the right track, to stay sober for almost 2 years now. So once again, congratulations, Rishi, on this near achievement. And well, there is a lot more. I want you to listen, and listen actually is one of the words we use most a lot of times in this conversation, because the listening is important. It's important to be able actually to improvise. So I want you to listen to this conversation, because there are a lot of insights, and what makes this conversation very special and different from any other episode of this podcast is actually the fact that we stay in a very personal level. There is a lot of intimacy in the conversation that we have. Well, I hope this makes you curious enough to keep listening to this episode. And before leaving you to Rishi, let me remind you that you can follow me on social media, and I will put the links in the description. But also, if you want more information about coaching, you can go to masteryourseed.com. And with no further ado, Rishi. Thank you, Rishi, for being here with us.
Hey, nice to be here. Nice to see you.
Right. So first of all, let me say something about me and Rishi, because actually we met virtually a few weeks ago during a coaching training. He's a coach like myself, and I think there was quite a quick connection, right? We were able to connect quite quickly, and you will discover what an amazing human being is. And he has a lot of things going on in his life still is yeah, I really like him. So that's why I'm very happy to have you here with us. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Let's roll. Okay, Rishi, and this podcast is all about leadership and personal leadership, and I think you
Mhm.
have very interesting stories to tell. And but once the question that I always ask, the initial question is about the definition of leadership. If you have any definition on leadership.
Yeah, let me take a moment. Um, I My definition has shifted over the years. So this is a snapshot of today. So I think leadership is about accessing inside of yourself what you believe to be true. And maybe that's about integrity, maybe that's about relationships, maybe that's about inspiration. I don't know. But to access that and to express it fearlessly.
Okay, so it's more like a internal discover.
Well, I think it's twofold. The discovery is important. You need to know what you believe, but I think the action is also significant because leadership is just leadership is like uh, who you are alone and who you are with others, right? You can be a
Right.
leader for yourself and you can be a leader for a group or for even for a one-on-one relationship. And I think accessing that is just half of it. Once you know what it is you want to do, like doing it, and I really want to highlight doing it fearlessly because I think leaders are those who say, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do this without looking back, who's following me, who's who's um who's judging me or who's approving of me.
Hmm. Okay, well, I have I'm interested in this definition. It's very different from what I heard in previous episodes, and it's more like looking inward than looking at outward,
Hmm.
because most of the people will define leadership based on the relationship with others.
Hmm.
And actually, what I like about your definition is a different level, is a different dimension, if you want. As I said, is really intimate journey, if you want. So
Hmm.
how do you actually get in touch with this inner you?
Yeah.
What are the things that you can do, also because it's not easy. It's easy to say, and then we can talk about it for hours, I guess, on a podcast, and you can listen or read books, but at the end of the day, to do that, you need to be able to really dig inside of you. So, what are the techniques, skills, or methods, if you want, that you think a person needs to get there?
Yeah. I mean, on a personal level, I can share probably tens of practices that I have for this. Not that I ever thought this is my leadership practice, but just as you asked the question, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what helps me access that. But I think a critical one is taking the time to listen. And I think maybe the in the some of the previous answers you've heard about the relational side of leadership, maybe you hear about listening to people and having that making space for those conversations or for feedback or I don't know. But I guess I'm also talking about making space to listen to yourself and maybe asking yourself a question that where you don't know the answer yet. So asking, what do I truly believe? But not letting yourself have the answer, letting yourself discover the answer.
Okay, so we're talking about self-reflection and
Yeah, maybe
finding,
self-discovery.
yeah, self-discovery. Okay, yes.
But I
And
think
this
there's another
is,
element. If
yeah,
I could share
please.
one more thing, I think there's also something about being comfortable saying no. Uh, and like being able to say like once you have a sense of your integrity, for me a big practice has been learning to protect it. And this is, I mean, I think this reflects just what I had to go through in my own journey, being somebody who said yes to everything. I think there's some people they're comfortable saying no, and their journey is to learn how to say yes. But my journey was to learn how to say no.
And your journey is very peculiar, and we will go to it a little
Sure.
later. But let me go back to your definition, because another word that you stressed a lot was the go in the world fearlessly, right? You just
Fearless,
get
yeah.
there, right? So what do you mean by that? What is this
Yeah.
being without fear that
Yeah. I guess I want to clarify that fearless for me doesn't mean that you don't experience fear.
Okay.
Uh, okay, so this is a quote from Game of Thrones or from, yeah, from the books and the movies and the show. It's like um, something about bravery, and it's Ned Stark, the protagonist of the first book, and he's like, you can only be brave when you're afraid. And that's like, that's, that's stayed with me ever since I first read it because this, yeah, this is fearlessness is, I don't think about being completely dissociated from fear or emotion or just, forging ahead. It's actually about listening to the fear and asking, what is this telling me? What can I learn? And then doing it anyways. Or
Right.
maybe feeling the strength or power of your what you need to do so strongly that you're going to do it despite the fear. And what inside yourself is that powerful? And I for me, it's not that it was never there, it was that it was there and I wasn't looking at it, I wasn't listening to it. So once I tuned in, I was like, holy shit, I have to keep doing this, I have to keep pursuing this regardless of the fear. And then I think that's what's funny is that there are greater and greater fears as you pursue like what I'm pursuing right now in my life. I notice that I have more and more fear as I strive for a more ambitious rendition of myself. And that is, I don't know. Am I being a leader? I don't know. But that's what I think what it means to be fearless is to actually accept and then move forward with the fear.
Right. This to learn how to deal with it, not to get stuck, not to get stopped by fear. Just
Mhm.
I like when you say that you move forward, you just keep going and you learn from that. So can I ask you what is your biggest fear right now?
Right now, I think I'm emerging like from a cocoon of something new, a new career and a new uh like a new me, basically. Something that's been in the works for a long time, maybe 10 years. And I'm afraid of giving up some of the comforts of what I had. Like I
Hmm.
think sometimes it can be like uh even like the way in which I used to earn money. That's one of the comforts I've kind of given up. Another one is relationships, certain relationships and for people that I call family. I think I'm learning to accept that those relationships have to be different for me to pursue what I want. And I'm totally afraid of one, that I'm going to lose all these things, and two, I'm going to lose all these things and look back and maybe I would say it wasn't worth it.
Well, we don't control the outcome of the choices that we make. Even if we do make choices, we don't have
Yeah.
control of 90% of the things that happen
Yeah.
around us. So, and I totally understand. And I share actually, I would say some of the things that you said, and that's interesting because we both are in uncharted
Hmm.
waters,
Hmm.
for us. But this podcast is not about me; it's about you. So let me say that just to explain to the listeners, you've been quite recently laid off by one of those tech companies, was
Hmm.
Substack, right? So you
Hmm.
find yourself in a short time without the job that probably has characterized the last years of your life. What does it take to get on your feet again, face your fear, and walk?
Yeah. For me, it takes turning towards the despair. So I I felt and I don't think you know this, Stefan. What happened was I lost my job on a Monday I lost my grandmother on a Thursday, actually, that same week. And then the following Monday, I fell off a bike and I broke my front two teeth. And I started to go into oral surgery the next months. And I, yeah, it was the most, I think, significant upheaval that I had in my life in one week. And I felt angry about the layoffs. I felt humiliated. I felt lonely. I felt lonely from my grandmother passing away. And I also, with her, I felt relief. And with my job also, I felt relief. But it's complex. And I also started to feel grief. I started to know grief in a way I never knew before. And then I lost my front two teeth and I felt feeble. I felt fragile. And actually, I had a big project that I was working on 1 month after all of this, and I completed that. And then I immediately descended into what I would call a depressive season. A few months of just, one, needing a lot of rest, but two, feeling so guilty about it, feeling like this is the chance for me to really take control of my life, to take charge. All these things, as a coaching career, art career, all these things I told myself when I'm not working the 9 to 5 tech job, I have room to pursue these things. And I wasn't doing it. I was just stuck. And that created a cycle. And I was more and more. And I had some good friends. One friend who, he just looked at my situation and he said, I think you're describing depression. And that was a big unlock for me to realize that I can say this is happening. And another friend who said, your system is asking for rest. Like depression is the need for deep rest. And sometimes friends would just come and hold me, and just people would check in. And the more I accepted this was happening, the more I turned towards the despair. The more I felt, yeah, this is okay. This is normal. Not, it's acceptable, or like I want it, I guess, but I'm not alone. And not just am I not alone, I'm this is life too. This can be beautiful too. And yeah, I couldn't even tell you when or how things started to change. I think one of the unlocks was to learn about grief and like learn about my own grief, rather, and what it is I was holding, and allowing myself to grieve not just the loss of my grandmother, but the loss of my previous life. Because I was so scared about like I was, at that time I was working on the coaching stuff and I was ready to start working with clients, and I was afraid to say, like, I'm ready to be accountable to people again, because if I started to take clients, I knew I would have to be accountable to them. And it was interesting to realize I wasn't afraid of the failure, that no one would work with me, or that I never considered that I would improperly serve a client, or that I would do wrong by a client. It was always, am I ready? Can I right now take this on? Can I be here for people the way I would want to as a coach? And once I learned that, it actually became much easier to accept, like, oh yeah, I can, yeah, I do want accountability. I do want structure. And I refer back to that period because immediately after, and it's not so quick, like it wasn't such a 0 to 1, it was, very gradual. But if I look back, like 1 month after sort of what I would call the depressive season, things were very different. I had energy, and I was really putting that energy towards the reconstruction of my life and the construction of a new life. But that period of time I actually consider as essential, because that's where I love the monster to come out and play, like the monster under the bed. And that's all part of me. The despair is part of me, and the hopelessness. And I think maybe just like with bravery, like you can't feel hopeful unless you know hopelessness. Like,
Thank you
yeah.
for sharing this. No, thank you for sharing this. I think is there are a lot of important lessons to take, and really like the way you were able to find a rope to climb again from the cliff. You found yourself. And now, as you say, you're a cocoon, right? So you are in an evolution phase,
Mhm.
ready to become a beautiful butterfly. A butterfly.
Yeah.
And so, what kind of butterfly you want to be? If a butterfly, whatever. what is your vision? What is that you wanna achieve in your future? You say
Mm.
something, and you already say that serving others. Like be accountable to serve others.
Mhm.
What else is your vision?
Yeah. The coaching side is becoming more and more clear. I've been working with clients since December, and it's obvious that will be there. And the cocoon I'm in now, the sort of transformation is more about pursuing art.
Mm.
And I for many years have been excited to pursue art. I had this vision, and I started to I don't want to thread everything in together. So I for many years was, I was going to galleries and looking at what artists were doing, and I would jot down ideas for myself. Like, what am I creating? What could it be? And like, if I had more resources, or if I had more um support, or if somebody was willing to take a chance on me, like basically like waiting for somebody else to call me an artist. But at the same time, I also started to draw and to make art, and to explore myself creatively and to make art with other people. And at some point now where I am, I realize like it's not about anyone else. And I think that's the cocoon, is to look at myself and say, I'm going to push this forward. So as an artist, it's like I'm going to create and reveal what's here. And the the role other people have is they can choose to engage with it, or they cannot. They can see it as beautiful or inspiring or important, or they cannot. But reversing the order, and that's very scary for me. Like, all of a sudden now my creativity is on display, my skills. Um, am I good enough to be called an artist? Am I committed enough? Um, those are questions. Uh,
Right. Are you good enough? Oh yeah, I guess the imposter syndrome is something characterized
mhm,
probably 90% of the people. And
mhm.
those who do not
Yeah.
have is probably they should. But it's just no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And there is I can really track some of my story to what you're saying, and it's um I feel it when you
Yeah.
share your
Yeah.
your experience. Well, but you're an artist. I'm not. I'm not an artist at all. Um, how art comes into play in your personal leadership? What is the artsy
Yeah.
part of you? How is this important in your transformation? Actually, not just in the transformation, but in taking charge of your life. That's
Yeah.
important part.
Yeah. This is fun. So, okay, so I'm an improviser. All of my art practices are related to being an improviser. So this is, I learned, I grew up playing music. I first learned about improvisation and performance through the framing of music. And um, and then I got into improv acting and like comedy, not like stand-up comedy, but more just on a stage improvising the scene together. And then I got into improvising visual art. So my drawings are all improvised. I don't know what I'm going to draw until I draw it. Um, some people would also think of that as process art. But um, at some point I realized there's a common thread to all of this, which is that improvising is a skill. It's not about doing uh it's not about just saying I'm going to do whatever. Yes, you have to get messy. You have to be open to whatever can happen. But with music, you're playing in a jazz ensemble, you know the chords. Or maybe you're learning how to listen. You're learning how to react to what's happening. And the same is happening in acting. It's like somebody makes an offer. So somebody says, how was your day today? And okay, now you're in a scene with the other person and they've asked you, how was your day? Maybe you are living together, or maybe they're your parent, or maybe there's an assumption of care, and you can play with that and add to the scene there. And with drawing, I didn't know how that would come about, but what I realized was I would draw a circle. All of my drawings are mandalas, so I'd draw a circle and then I would just release what I needed to onto the page. And only after looking at the drawing, I would be like, oh, wow, that's an image I saw 2 days ago. Or I just captured this feeling I had right now. And so I was reacting to my own life. And throughout all of this, there's a common thread, which is the relationship between structure and improv. The structure informs the improvisation. And I've learned one of the best ways to create an improvised, like a moment of improvised beauty, is to create the structure and then play inside the structure, like almost like, kids in a sandbox. You make the sandbox and then anything can happen in there. It's kind of a magical world. And you asked me about this in leadership in my life, and what I've learned I do, and I think this is somewhat unique, but it's something that I really, maybe if I had a message, it would be to encourage others to play with this. I've learned how to improvise my own life. And by that, I mean, oh.
No, it's okay. I mean, what I was going to say, I see that as also a way to adapt, right? To adapt to whatever is happening to you and face the challenge. I mean, as you said earlier, not just stop somewhere, but actually see that as an opportunity for something new and unexpected, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of seeing something new and discovering the unexpected, and it's a little bit about listening more deeply to what's already there. Like we exist in a period of tremendous uncertainty, and I think that we always do. It's not that it's 2023 is a unique year. I think it's uncertainty is always there, and my practice of improvising my life is about tuning myself to the uncertainty, to ask, what am I learning here? What am I discovering about myself and about the world? And I think, yeah, maybe 2023 we can say, it's like in the tech industry where my career was, there are more layoffs than ever before. It's a whole new landscape. So there are many more people who are now tuning into uncertainty. And when you tune into uncertainty, I think you have the choice to say, okay, let me grasp for what I used to have or what the status quo was before. And you and I call this dancing through coaching, right? It's like, all right, what music is being played now? What's the time signature? What's the style? And then finding a way to dance and I guess being bad at it a little bit for a while before you get your legs. Yeah, for me, I grew up with a pretty unstable environment. Like my family life was pretty unstable, and I moved between countries a couple of times. So I didn't always have like a refuge of one particular place or one particular context. So I had to learn how to take refuge in the moment, like the exact moment. And yeah, so my way of doing that is listening, improvising, dancing.
So the connection between my take from this is that the connection between improvisation and listening is that you want to really listen to what's happening around you. As we always say in coaching, there are 3 levels of listening. The level 1 is the inner listening, so you listen to yourself. The second level is you listen to the person who's speaking to you. And the third level is kind of listening the whole environment around around you, around the person you're talking to. And I guess to be able to improvise, you need to listen everything that is around you. And that's the key to be able to dance in the moment. There is a lot, yeah, and those are beautiful lessons that I hope people that has been recently laid off, from those company could take and understand. And of course, it requires some practice, I guess, some exercise. Nothing comes spontaneously unless you are a gifted person. I don't know if you are or not, but what are the things that you can do to listen, to be able to improvise and dance in the moment?
Well, I want to address that question. I think because you mentioned that there are many people who might be listening who were recently laid off, or there may be a few people, and I think I want to be clear that some choices are harder to make than others. Like, people have dependents, like they have people who rely on them, their children or their parents, and they have commitments. And I think that for me, the role of improv is not to throw everything into the air and let's dance. It's like, where are we playing now? And I think this is also an act of listening. Like, it's about asking yourself, I think what I said earlier, right? Asking yourself a question without knowing the answer. That's a good start.
Yeah, let me stop you here, because you say something. Earlier you said that improvisation comes with a structure, right? It's not like you improvise without structure. So of course, you might have a structure that is made of a family. You might have two kids, a wife, or a husband, or a partner. You might have something else that is your structure, but you can still find fun, energy in improvising within this, what you call the sandbox. And I like the sandbox because the sandbox recalls like a safe environment, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing is improvisation requires safety. Like, you need to feel comfortable going to the outlandish. I mean, I think a lot of improv troupes, they get to know each other by building safety. Like, we used to do something like, whenever somebody made a mistake, we would all put our hands up and say, hooray, like, you did it, to celebrate, because making a mistake means you tried something new.
You mean also basically is a building trust, a strong trust.
Yeah. What I like about this is letting your body know, because our bodies often tell us you were wrong before our minds do. And so kind of saying to the body, like, no, we celebrate this. And I think that's something, if nothing else, you can learn to do that at home, in your families, celebrating mistakes, celebrating trying something new. It can just be, I cooked something new today, or I made a drawing and I've never drawn before, or I took myself on a different route walking home. And I think those small moments of wonder accumulate up to, a life of wonder.
But at some point, you might need to get a step off the sandbox. At some point, you might need to get off this safety area. I don't want to call it comfort zone, because we're not talking about comfort. We're talking about safety. But probably there are moments in which you actually need to look outside and being able to improvise within a looser structure.
Well, what's interesting is, because you mentioned the difference between safety and comfort, there's two frameworks. Like, one framework, we're talking about safety, feels more like a binary. It's like you're safe or you're unsafe, right? And then I think with comfort, there's this educational principle of like comfort zone, stretch zone, panic zone. Some people call the stretch zone the learning zone. But comfort is when things are good, and it's okay to stay in the comfort zone, because maybe that's where it's warm, that's where you feel safe. But I find the stretch zone to be the place where you're doing something new and you're also safe, where you're exploring, where you're learning, where where you might make a mistake and you can get feedback and then you can learn from that or you can grow from that. And I think another active listening, another tool, because you asked me for tools, right? Another tool is to notice which zone am I in right now. Not to put yourself in the zone, but just to notice, like, okay, I'm trying something new. I'm in the stretch zone. Cool. Let's keep trying. Or I notice I'm in the panic zone now. I need to take a step back. I need to chill. Because if I'm in the panic zone and I'm pushing myself, then maybe I'm not going to be able to learn anything. It might be what hurts me more in the long term.
I can see that. Yeah, of course. Panic
But
brings stress, and stress doesn't bring the kind of sharp mind that you need at the other point. You mentioned failures and how important it is to learn from failures. Is there any event in your life that you want to share that is one of your most important failures? And actually, what I really would like to hear from you is how you dealt with it.
yeah. Yeah. I think this is going to get a little heavy. I think one of my greatest failures in life is waiting too long to address my relationship with alcohol. And I knew I was started to drink. I was a little bit late to the party for American standards, and I think from a European standard, it's going to be even late. I started drinking at 20. Um, but I also had this compressed idea. I was like, drinking is cool. People who drink are cool, and we have to not just drink, we have to binge drink. We have to go for blackout. And I lived like this for maybe 8 or 9 years. I would say that, yeah, it's actually not that much time. Some people have that for a much longer time. But in that time, I had all kinds of experiences. I obviously had some positive experiences with drinking that made me reinforce the idea this is good. This is what makes me accepted or loved by other people. But also learning that someday I would wake up and I wouldn't feel great. I would think, did I do something last night? I'd feel anxious. Or sometimes for many months, every time I drank, I would feel anxious. What did I do last night? There would be moments where I didn't remember, and somebody later would tell me, like, you punched me. That was intense. That was a time where I had to really be humble and say, wow, and I didn't want to. I couldn't imagine that I'd punched someone. I'm not a confrontational person. But that happened. And like that, I started to think maybe it would be better if I didn't drink. And the first time I made it just 7 months. I was pretty proud of myself. I thought, all right, I'm good. Went back to drinking. And then after a couple of years, I again hurt somebody very close to me, somebody that I really admired and someone I really cared about. And I hurt them in a way that I think the relationship is not going to recover. After some time, I took the time to apologize and I received an acknowledgement about the apology. But what I realize is that is irreversible. And even so, I think, again, I made it 9 months. And then I started to drink again. And then again, I hurt somebody. This time, somebody even closer to me. And this time, the person said, I'm going to stick around until you figure this out. Like, they said, you have to quit drinking for us to be in a relationship. But they also, alongside that, they said, we're going to be in a relationship. And at that point, I thought, this is the moment. Like, I can't fuck around anymore. But yeah, I look back on that and I think it was a failure because I failed. And frankly, I don't think of a lot of things as failure. I think of a lot of things as experiments. If you learn something, so be it. But this example, I learned the lesson over and over, and I still didn't, take it in. And I guess while I'm talking about this, I guess I want to share, because for anyone who's listening to this and feels like they have a relationship with a substance or an addiction or something that they struggle, like I think that there's no wrong time to try a different path. And I frankly, there's a part of me that believes that each of those moments each of those attempts to go sober was, building strength for the final one. And who knows if this is the final one. I'm coming up, it will be 2 years in July. But, my hope is that it will be 2 decades and it will be the rest of my life. But if it's not, like, it's just me building strength for the next one. And it's okay to take 2 days off. That's still 2 days of sobriety. Yeah. You're muted, Stefan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I say thank you for sharing and congratulations on your 2 years mark that is getting closer. And then what I heard is that you had someone actually helping you a little bit getting sober, but what else did you need to reach this result?
I think it's kind of scary to say because I don't know fully if it's true. So I'm going to say it with the caveat, but I think I needed to see the impact of my drinking. Like, I needed to feel the pain that I had hurt somebody in the way that I did to take it seriously. And I don't really want to say like that person needed to feel pain, because that's just inappropriate. No one deserves to experience the things that happen to them in these kinds of contexts, and especially the people that I've hurt. They don't deserve those things, not at all. And I also feel that, but I needed to know about pain. Like, I needed to be okay that I had caused pain. And maybe if earlier in my life I had turned towards pain more quickly or with more of an openness, then maybe I wouldn't be drinking so much, because I could have, instead of drinking, I would have said, I'm angry, or I would have said, I'm hurt, or I'm sad. But it was, I think it's the same thing I said earlier about when I got laid off and when I went through the depression, just turning towards the despair.
Okay, let's try to uplift this conversation a little bit.
Do you want to shake? Should we shake?
Let's shake. Yeah. No, actually, it's I think it's a great sharing, and there are a lot of things you're saying that I'm sure a lot of people relate to, and those are so useful to so many levels. For those who are going through a layoff, for those who are going through a transformation in their life, or for those who are struggling with some addiction of any sort. Your bravery in sharing your experience is such an invaluable, and it's so precious, and I'm so grateful you're doing this so openly. But it's not over yet. So let me ask you this. If you have to project yourself in I don't know, 5 years from now, who's going to be Rishi in 5 years from now? Who are you going to be?
Yeah. It's funny, you can ask me this question every month this year, January through May, and you would get a different answer. So this is the answer for May. No, I'll tell you what I imagine. It's just, hopefully some of this is still alive, right? I've been saying that time is the great distiller of truth. So whatever is swirling around in me this year, 5 years from now, that whatever's still there, that's going to be what's true, right? That's really important. That really I prioritize. And my hope is that I'm making more art. I'm performing with people, and not in particular with people, because a lot of my art I do on my own. I also hope to be doing some kind of education. And I don't know if this means I will be a teacher in a classroom. I might be somebody who's just sharing art with others. My vision is to be inspiring other people to be creative on their own and with other people too. And I think that I have people around me, like relationships around me, where we can really be honest with each other. Like we have conflict and it's okay. Or we are building a life of like integrity. For me, integrity is about listening to myself and letting the relationship, trusting the relationship to hold what's alive. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
No, you can keep going. I mean,
The image I have is like a family. And I don't think of just my family, but I think the people in my family are there. But that family is very important. Yeah, and we come together not just because of our backgrounds, but because of who we choose to be with each other. And the family gives us the chance to be who we want to be.
the vision is a kind of a destination, if you want, right? So it's the place where you're going.
Yeah.
And what is your North Star in this journey? What's keeping you on track?
For me, it's leading with emotion. I'm a pretty sensitive person. I feel things pretty sensitively. Like something happens and I have an emotional reaction. And as I learn to listen to my emotions better and to tune them in rather than tuning them out, I notice that I'm more sensitive than I was before. And I think of this sensitivity as my strength. It's my like unique power. So listening to it, letting other people in, allowing other people to share their emotion with me, tuning in to each other. These are the things that are going to help me go where I'm going.
Emotions is something that nowadays a few people are willing to deal with. That's what I find, especially when I talk to people. And a lot of people are projecting, doing, moving. And even when you ask, okay, what is you were feeling at the moment? They or what are you feeling right now? They always go into, oh, I feel like I want to do this. I feel like I need to do that, and it's never really an emotion. It's more like the pulls to act. Why we forget how important emotions are in our balance and in our being human, in our dealing with everything, not just other people, but with everything in our life. Can be an event, can be a situation, can be another person, can be an animal or whatever. It's even with time itself, emotions, acknowledging emotions is such an important thing.
Yeah.
Do you have a person or more than one that you admire and you think, oh, this is the kind of a person I really would like to be, or part of it, of course, 100%, but the kind of inspiration.
Yeah, there are a couple of artists.
Okay.
There are a couple of artists, yeah.
You want
Performance
to name
artists.
them?
Yeah, I think the person I want to name is Riz Ahmed.
Okay.
He's a Pakistani British musician, rapper, actor, filmmaker. But it's for me what I like about his work is that he really exposes himself and his cultural context and his community, and he's just saying like there's real stuff happening and this is what it is. And yeah, actually I had this when I was working with my own coach. Like my coach asked like, who's your role model or who are your role models? And I thought of him immediately. And As an artist, he's just putting himself out there. He's growing his artistry. He's been doing this for many years. Like he's fearless. And I think anyone who's listening to this, who's in the sort of South Asian community, I think he's not so far away. Like many of us look up to him. Many of my friends and peers see him as like a very, very positive influence. But yeah, like you said, it's a part of them. As with public figures, you never know what's really going on. So the thing I choose to take is sort of his willingness to express emotion and his fearlessness.
And once again, the fearless part comes out. is the right. It's like a circle in a good way, and then we
Mm-hmm.
are back to your definition of leadership, and that's what I like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, is the right way to go through our last question, and is and let me be more specific on this, because normally I ask more generically, but actually I think one important thing I want to ask you is, and we have not prepared this like
Okay.
anything else, but I really say it as it comes out of you. But let's say someone or those people has been laid off come to you and say, "Hey, Rishi, I wanna be the cocoon you are. I wanna become a butterfly like you are planning to do.
Yeah.
I wanna learn improvisation. I wanna learn how to get in touch with emotions. I wanna learn basically to take charge of my life and be a better leader for myself.
Yeah.
What do I need to do, Rishi? What is there I need to develop or improve?"
I think I said it already. I mean,
Okay.
uh, I think it's about listening. It's really um, when I took a musical improv class at university, and there was one of the teachers. He continued to share with us. He was like, "All you have to do is listen to Sun Ra. Sun Ra has a song called 'Space is the Place,' and he would say, 'Space is the place.' And whenever we were coming together to make music together. It was a bunch, there was all kinds of different musicians, I think 12 musicians with all kinds of instruments. You'd never see them in an ensemble together before. And at the beginning, it was chaos. Everybody playing at the same time, everybody trying to bring in their magic. And we started to learn and integrate space as the place over time. And that just means taking time, listening, choosing your moment wisely. Like if you're playing the whole time, then you're not listening as much. And when you listen and you hear what music is being made, then you can come in and add something. And I just remember one moment where I I took I was on my saxophone and I just took the song to a whole different height. I went into this really high note and I was like, I can do that. And it wasn't me, it was the collective energy riding me, like working through me. And that was because I gave space and I listened. So I mean, I think of being laid off as especially for those who get a severance. I think this is the time, for many people, the first time they're getting paid with nothing to do. And some people will choose to look for a job that looked the same as the previous job. And, I don't fault that choice. I actually think that can be very strategic. But I also say, like, now that you have some space, like what can happen if you just listen? Like I started to draw when I had nothing else going on. I was just feeling inspired and I was I just decided I can do this, and I started to do it. And the thing is, I couldn't tell anyone what their thing is. Only you know. So uh, maybe the way to get there is to give yourself more space.
And that means getting out of the sandbox, or designing another sandbox,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, I think it's about figuring out what is your sandbox.
Right.
Like, and how much time are you going to give yourself, and what are you going to stay in your routine? How will you break the routine? How will you, what will be different because you have this time? And
And
yeah,
this
maybe
is
I
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, maybe I want to say, like, don't miss this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
this is a unique opportunity.
Absolutely. And of course, let me add, this is a lesson that you learn on your skin. It might be not the same for anyone else.
Hmm.
Someone might be actually so proud of what they have, they don't want to change, and that's fine as well. And that's is a choice. And the most important part of it, I think, is to make the choice that resonates the most with you. I know it can be exploring new opportunities and take time, as you said, to think and learn and listen, or just follow the path that you're on because you like it, you love it, and it's good and it's fine. Rishi, thank you very much. I think you have shared a lot, and I felt it all,
Mm.
and it touched. I was touched by your words, and thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for being with us. Thank you for being so honest and open.
yeah,
Um, and thank you for your insights, especially on how to take charge of your life. And I'm sure you're gonna be a fantastic butterfly. And I hope we stay in touch. And maybe in a few years, months, we'll have another episode with you in a different, now as a butterfly.
in a
With
new cocoon.
you're right.
Yeah, I hopefully I'm still in another cocoon. There's something more to unravel even then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you again.
yeah. Thanks, Stefano. I appreciate the space.